And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
There are themes that get me excited, then there are themes that really get me excited, and if you saw my reviews last year, you saw that Urban Sprawl was a disappointment to me because the game, the theme I loved, of building a city, and the game itself just didn't do it for me. I could see a lot of good aspects of it, but overall the game didn't feel like it built a city. This one, City Tycoon. Now, I have to say the artwork on it is a little bit futuristic looking and a little funky when you build the city, but still, I was like, oh, another city building game. I love this theme, but is it going to be a good game? Well, the short answer is, oh, that's right. I'm not supposed to give my thoughts before we check it out. So here we go. Dump and all. Time to talk about the game. In City Builder, you start with 4 tiles in the middle of the table here, and these 4 make up the single city-owned properties that are going to be in the game. In fact, these 4 squares, unlike the rest of the squares in the game, function as one giant square. But here you have a power plant that's producing power each turn and a water plant that produces water equal to the number of players. So this is the way it would be set up for a 4-player game. The game takes place in 4 rounds, and each round is made up of several phases. At the beginning of each round, you're going to take a stack of tiles that show the number of that round, and these are going to be shuffled and dealt to each player, and each player is going to get 6 of these tiles. And you're going to look at the 6 tiles that you have in your hand. You're going to choose one that you're going to keep, and then you're going to pass the rest on. Then from the person next to you, you'll get 5 tiles, pick one of those to keep, pass those on. Then you'll get 4 tiles, pick one of those to keep. And you keep doing that until you have 6 tiles, so that's a bit of a drafting phase. Then once everyone has done that, what players are going to do is they're going to take turns. And turn order, by the way, is a pretty critical thing in this game, and you can see it over here. It's on this gigantic scoring track, which really doesn't need to be this big. Probably could stop at 50 easily. But anyway, I digress. So turn order matters quite a bit in this game, and in turn order, players have a few actions they can do. One, if they have a tile, they can just discard that tile and take $5. Alright, so you can get rid of any tile from your hand to get $5. You can also take a tile and place that tile on the board next to a tile that's already on the board. You put one of your markers on to show it, and then that tile has a cost on it. So for example, this tile here, you can see has a cost of 9, so I need to pay $9 to put that tile down. Some tiles, like this one here, you can see has a green and a blue square on it. For those, you need to put out some extra tiles adjacent to the one that was just put down. There's a pile of green and blue tiles. In fact, they're the same thing on each side, so whichever one you need. So I put green next to this, a forest, and some water here. Now, water simply acts as hindering terrain, but grassland is actually terrain that can have things go through it, so you put your marker on that to show that that is your forest. Now, another thing players can do is instead of building one of their properties, they can just discard it, and instead of taking the $5, go over here to a pile of power plants and water plants that are here in a pile, going from smallest to largest, and they can buy one of these and build either side of it. The sides are a little bit different. You can see this one here costs $4 and it produces 1 water, and every turn it will produce 1 water. Or this one costs $3 and it produces 2 water, and then after that it's out of water. And so you can build one of these anytime you want, and again, placing it on the board. So as the game progresses, the board is going to fill up with different types of buildings, and these buildings we put here, and players will be putting their different markers on the buildings. And not all the buildings will be put out, of course, because a lot of what people put out, there's going to be saving and throwing tiles away to get money, so not all 6 tiles will be played on the board. After everyone has played, again in turn order, players are going to start operating their buildings. To do this, each building has a certain requirement that it needs, And so they'll take water cubes, paying money to whoever owns it. For example, here the city owns it. But if I had put one of these out over here and put my token on it, then people would have to pay me to get that water cube. But they pay that person $2. They also have to pay anybody else who they move the cube through their area $2. Now, if you're moving it through your own, you're fine. But if you're moving it through other people's squares, it's $2 per square. But eventually you'll get it to where you want it to go, and then you will get some bonus. So, for example here, you can see this power plant here. If I, or whatever this building is, I'm sorry, this yellow futuristic building. If I get one red energy cube here, I can do one of two things. I can either take $5 or I can exchange it for a goods cube. The building right below it. Here, if I can either bring a red energy cube in to get $4 or bring a yellow cube in to get a victory point. The building below it, 2 water cubes gets me $5 or 1 energy gets me 3. Here, 3 energy gets me a point and a yellow cube. Or this one also will give me a bonus point for every other purple building it's next to. And there's a lot of buildings like that, which the rules incidentally say, this isn't that big of a deal. They really are. But this one here, this building, gives an extra victory point to every green building that's next to it. So whenever that green building operates, you get bonuses. Now that one doesn't do anything because it's not next to green buildings, but down here this one is. It gives an extra victory point. So whenever I spend a water to get $3 or a yellow trade good to get a victory point, the yellow trade good will get me 2 victory points and the water will get me $3 and a victory point. And so players will do that, and eventually you will either run out of cubes or people will not be interested in buying them. At that point, all the cubes on the recyclable buildings will replenish, and players will grab the next stack and deal them out. Turn order is adjusted with the poorest player going first, and the game will continue. Now, you can see as the game continues, the buildings, these are the buildings from the 4th era, get really progressively powerful. And buildings have different symbols on, like for example, this building, when it's built, gives you 5 victory points. It doesn't do anything after that. Other buildings need a variety of resources that go into them. And some buildings give you points for every building of a certain type that you have on the board. But for the most part, it's quite simple. One of the things that the game has is when you supply a building, you're supposed to leave the cube on that building to show it's supplied. And that works okay. The problem is, as you're moving cubes around the board and that, it can be sometimes confusing to look at it. So what we did in our games is we took the cubes off, but the building that was supplied, we found some other marker to put on them to show that those buildings had been used and couldn't be used again that round. And that was just an easier way. So I'd recommend if you have some glass beads or something, to stick them in the game. The money is of different shapes and sorts, comes with cubes, and you can also see that it has different weird tokens for the different ownership markers, and there's lots of stacks of tiles here. So this is the way the game works. After 4 rounds, whichever player has the most points is the winner. Alright, sorry about that brief rules interruption. Let's talk now about my thoughts on the game. I enjoyed it, but I have to say I enjoyed it from the moment I read the rules because everything just made sense. Now this is a mechanic that I'm not often too fond of, and that's pick up and deliver, because you're basically picking up cubes and delivering them to different spots to get different things. And you're basically just changing these cubes into victory points or to other cubes. But it just seems to work. And watching the city build, the different colors, and there's drafting. I'm a huge fan of drafting. It's not used enough in games. And I enjoyed the drafting of this game. I saw a lot of people comparing this to Seven Wonders, which doesn't make any sense because the only thing it really does is drafting. But drafting is a cool mechanic. People liked it in Seven Wonders, and it's a good thing to see it again here. But I like the drafting part a lot. It's neat to see how the game ramps up. The first tiles are not so powerful, and then they get bigger, and the different strategies. Like one strategy I always try, and haven't won with yet, but I'm getting there, is trying to get as many power plants as I can and make people buy the cubes from me, or at least have enough cubes that I never have to buy them from anybody else. And just moving around, yeah, there's luck. And this game, I will warn you, if you play with somebody who has a tendency to bog down in some serious analysis paralysis, could present some problems. But there often isn't too many places to move your cubes to. Most of the decision making comes during the gameplay, and I like that part because you can always chuck a tile away for $5, and you'll do that a lot. And at the end, it's kind of fun because when you draw that final hand of tiles, you look at them all and you say, these are all so good, I want them all. And you can't take them all. You can only draft one and pass them on. But even then, you get a handful of great tiles. And you say, I want to build them all. But you can't. So you got to choose which ones to build. I really enjoy playing this. And I play a lot of games. And I play very few games multiple times or many times at all because just all the games that come through. But after we played this, I was ready to play again. The next day when we got out games, I said, you know what? I want to play this again because I enjoyed it that much. And everyone else, well, not everyone, but almost everyone else that I played this with enjoyed it also. City Tycoon. It's not the perfect match of a theme. It still isn't the perfect simulation of a city building, but it's pretty close, and I think a lot of people will like it.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.